Yo guys, what up, Viper here, and I'm back talking about the best teams in the game. And today I want to cover a updated version of how we should be playing the Mud Berserker Toxic Colossal kind of team with a really cool and strong addition, so you don't lose to those Psy and Invoker counter things as much anymore. So, getting right into it, you can immediately see it's pretty much like the standard-ish build with the Aeon, the Kadulu's null opening. Why do I go for this instead of the Bulwark version? I think late game it just feels better to have higher quality units, and there's a lot of water, there's a lot of air in the game right now, so big Colossus nature tanks, very strong. Also, a lot of teams are very focused on one hyper carry dealing all the damage, and that one hyper carry has a very hard time taking down Null / Aeon due to the verdant AoE healing and the Colossus with the big support from the healings on the verdant fields. Then further, you can see there's two Ripins in this team. I think the meta currently is very either water air heavy or it is very earth heavy. So we are putting both of those Ripins versions in here, so you can decide depending my opponent plays air and water. Nature Ripins is gonna go hyper, super crazy, fighter hyper. We can see here, upon becoming hyper, 25% attack speed gained, and they get further 35% because the fighter, and they pierce physical and energy resistance. One of the strongest, probably by far the strongest damage-oriented hyper, so super crucial to have the correct right plans every game, honestly. And well, the same against the Earth teams, basically. Then the other addition to the standard setup of, like the standard 8 Illuvial setup, right? The double Berserker, double Mystic, another Mud and double Colossus, is that I think I really like the Ramfire option in honestly almost most teams right now, because playing Ramfire in your team, it kind of requires you don't even need a 70 cost weapon, it's a 10 cost fire weapon, and then you pretty much always play Indomitable Augment anyways, and then a Vitality Veil is a very universally usable Augment, but it is very strong on Ramfire, so you only sacrifice what, like 1, 2, maybe a third slot if you want to just late game play for the Ramfire in not only the Psy matchups, but maybe in some other matchups as well, plus like one Augment that is also universally good. So like 2.5 slots you kind of need for the Ramfire tech in almost any team that you play, and it is very good in terms of beating those one Kadulu's frontline, 5 Flish, Arcane Ember Lynxes, everything behind that. Very difficult to beat those Psy teams if you're not running the Ramfire, honestly. Especially when it comes to this team late game, it is essentially a very one-dimensional team. You can do Gorilla and a Predator weapon, and you can swap to that, and then you have some kind of rogue thing going on. But I think that is on the like lower side of very easily able to assassinate people. They can just clump in a corner, and most players have gotten very good at playing around Gorilla and the Predator Ranger. Therefore, going for the Ramfire is almost necessary if you need an assassin in the mid to later stages of the game. Outside of that, we have very anti-energy focused augments, because a lot of people play very energy focused teams, Psy, Enchanter, Empath oriented things. Therefore, Technology, very good augment to run on especially Aeon or especially Aeon or Gorilla as well. Gorilla is more difficult to protect it, Aeon are very easy to protect, and with the Mud synergy, incredibly high energy gain, therefore casts many abilities, therefore takes a lot of energy from the opponent, because we can see whenever Aeon is going to cast an ability, it's going to take 12% of the energy cost of the ability away from enemy's team's energy. Now if we have both of those, that's 21%, Aeon having 130 energy cost ability, so it's going to take away roughly what your opponents get by 2 to 3 auto attacks in terms of energy. Very massive, and especially good in combination with the biogenic suppressors, so they gain less energy, it takes them more time to regain that energy. Outside of that, you have the standard augment setups, right? We want to play attack speed and pure damage on our Monkey usually, because Monkey doesn't have an ability, Monkey is just auto attacking all the time, therefore the pure damage on auto attack very valuable. Less valuable on Ripins, for example, because Ripins spend some time using the ability, which means it's not auto attacking, which means it's not applying the pure damage on hit. But further than that, attack speed augments just very good on Mud units, because when they attack, they slow the enemy's attack speed and they gain extra energy. That's very good, and attack speed is very good on Berserkers, because they auto attack based damage dealers. Outside of that, we just have like the one Fawn slash invulnerable, very good late game augment, can also be used for the Fawn's part, honestly. Fawn's part is very, very powerful against especially things like the Psion teams, where you kind of can just combine some Ramfire AoE plus Fawns to finish off the entire enemy low health units very easily. And then you have things like Temporal Safeguard, like you can choose either damage reduction or cleanse and immune. Cleanse part I think still doesn't work, it's only the immune part, but if you put this on a Ripins is casting every 4 seconds, it's gonna be permanently immune versus whatever stuns, toxic, debuffs, anything you can think of. Very good versus other mud teams, makes your Ripins pretty much super, super insane in that matchup. Outside of that, you can also use something like Nanosequencer for the physical and energy resist on potentially one of your Colossus, so they just don't ever die. You can also use the healing part on one of the Colossus again, so they don't ever die, basically, against low damage output enemy teams. Or you can also give the physical and energy resist to your Ripins, which through Mystic Shields and Adorius is just gonna keep staying alive and be almost like immortal. Then on top of that, Toxic is gonna give it some healing. Same logic can be applied to Mankia, but Mankia really likes to have attack speed plus pure damage augment. Ripins doesn't have too many good offensive augment choices, so putting defensive ones like Nanosequencer, like Survival Protocol, really, really good. Outside of that, Exalted Vitality Veil, very strong augment on something like a frontline unit, for example Null as well, because it gives you some healing, gives you some regeneration, works out with the Colossus defenses, and also it gives you a lot of energy. Null having incredibly powerful ability that is hard countering a lot of the Ranger and Gauntlet focused teams that people are playing, a lot of the Psion focused teams, because they cannot really avoid Null's ability, so it's gonna crowd control their main carry, it's gonna deal damage to their main carry, which then in combination with Grilla or with maybe a Ramfire even, is gonna be very easy to finish off those carries. That's why I prefer this version at the moment compared to the Bulwark Kling version, just because your Null, Kling is gonna get like one ability off, and Null is gonna be able to get multiple abilities off. Now here I am on my main game testing account at the moment. Main account still 2220, I think another account 2150 or so. Very, very difficult to climb to those ranks at the moment because an incredible amount of decks has been popping off. I think every day somebody finds some new meta-ish theme. Very, very cool meta to play in at the moment, but very difficult to climb on those super high rank accounts due to that. We see one of the new meta decks that popped up, the very, very lean and super, super cheap oriented Enchanter Tsunami version, incredibly augment focused, just 8 Illuvials, very cheap. We see the Grokkos, the cheap water tank, Bulwarks, and yeah, let's just see if we can beat this. So regarding legendary augments, Void Cleaver Catalyst, it's pretty much a good augment. It's very similar to Photon Ripper versus a 1000 HP enemy. It's pretty much exactly Photon Ripper versus a 1000 HP enemy. Now, the sad reality is neither of us can use this, neither of us can use this. This augment is slightly bugged. It only reduces base and not bonus resistance, so it's not that strong. Therefore, this is kind of a boring legendary augment selection. Void Cleaver Catalyst is good, but it's not that good as it could be versus my opponent's team, because all of my opponent plays very low HP Bulwark tanks. It would be very devastating for me because I'm gonna have like 3000 HP guys, so it would do 150 pure damage per auto attack. Very, very scary. Now here you can do a slight optimization to the team if you want to do that, where you can put a 30 cost version of Arcane Sash in this team. I currently, just for like the highest late game cap, the strongest late game board that I can have, am just sticking with the 40 cost version because I'm not really facing many other Kadulox Ranger openings, unless they play Kadulox Ranger plus like a Flish or something where I wouldn't win anyways. Therefore I think it currently, outside of dealing 30 extra points of damage to your opponent, is rarely worth it to go for this. Here pretty much a standard opening, the 3 water bulwarks, very cheap, very effective because Kadulu, because Kara Blue and Atlas, super high quality units. The downside on these bulwarks is they don't offer utility, right? They have just high tank stats, Grocko stun is very nice, doesn't happen too often, very small range. Karablu Taunt though is very strong utility. Because while the unit is taunted, it cannot use abilities, and it also interrupts if it's currently challenging an ability. Channeling an ability. Sorry. So for example, a dual left beam or a Zephyrus casting animation and such. Now, you saw we could have dealt 30 points of extra damage to our opponent if I had the Ranger suit, but that would have been the use case for that suit. Win anyways, no unit died, right? Now, on our turn 2, we can do Nala Arcalion. You can also think about skipping the Arcalion, so you can do a quicker transition to Berserkers and Mud. I think I'm gonna go for the triple nature though, because I'm playing against the air water heavy team. And nature seems very strong due to that. Now here, I like positioning the Arcalion in the middle-ish position, because Arcalion taking damage is not really a big deal. It's just gonna deploy the verdant AoE healing field. It's gonna usually get one cast off anyways, and it is more value compared to it staying behind and it never deploying the verdant AoE healing field that gives 25 health recovery. Now I'm putting my Null on this side. More or less, if my opponent's ranger stays in this corner, Null is gonna stun it. If my opponent's ranger goes to this corner, Null is probably still gonna stun it. My opponent could have considered putting the ranger in some position where it doesn't get stunned. Didn't do that. Now you see my entire team got hyper. We have the verdant healing fields and such. We'll see if the Toxic can eventually finish off our opponents, or if Toxic is not doing enough. Here it would have been very nice if Arcalion would have taken more damage. As you can see, if I would have had more AoE healing fields, then our team would have had a easier time here. Yep, difficult to handle turn 2 with essentially the Geyser Tsunami AoE healing plus AoE shields, where Toxic is not enough of a damage output anymore. So certainly, instead of Arcalion, I could consider to just go Monkey. Now here is somewhat interesting spot, because we could go for a double Mud combo. Double Mud combo probably involves... I actually have no idea. Didn't think I would lose that turn. I think in this turn we will not play. Usually you would just go for double Mud here, but because we play against this full air water team, I'm gonna go for my nature Ripins. Now I like to place the nature Ripins on this side, because if the ranger is on this side that would attack the Ripins, my Null can CC it. Also, we got a very strong damage legendary Augment. I like positioning that this turn. Otherwise, you can also consider just going for a tank Augment on Ripins here. Very, very good option. You see Ripins getting hyper. It doesn't have the Berserker trait active, but the hyper Ripins are still adding enough damage to our team, so we can actually chunk through those guys. And the ranger weapon is not upgraded yet, so it's just not enough damage to take down my Ripins. I think the main small mistake in turn 2 now the second set of legendary augments, a bit not very eventful again, and useless for both of us, useless for both of us. Jacked honestly is pretty decent for Berserkers. I even might want a bit 2 on that, because I don't think my opponent... Yeah, I guess if I go 2-2, I'd probably just get jacked in, and I give my opponent Adaptive Reflection. I could also go 3-1 instead. Oh, I guess my opponent takes the Jacked End, okay. Now, the interesting thing here is Jacked End doesn't do anything for my opponent. There's no, like, auto-attack high damage dealer there. So my opponent going 3-1, they're trying to deny me the Jacked End, makes my 2-2 bet a lot better, because now I got this instead of nothing, and my opponent got to use this Augment, basically. So we certainly want to put our Berserker in, we certainly want to put our Gorilla in. Gorilla, very good, is going to jump the Ranger. I think in this matchup I'm not same-siding my Berserkers, basically. And I think I'm gonna have Gorilla jump this side. I just don't want it to attack the Flood. That would be a bit awkward. We could put Adaptive on Ripins here. It's gonna make it super tanky. I think that is very reasonable. The only awkward part about this is having 20 points left and nothing to do with those 20 points. But I think that is fine. You can also put the Ranger over here. Now, our opponent did not protect the Ranger at all here. That is a very major mistake. So our Gorilla will probably... Our Gorilla can take down the Ranger at some point or another. But the main part of this is the Gorilla is just attack speed slowing the Ranger. Attack speed slowing our opponent's main carry. Very a strong part of the Mud team, period. Oh. Well, as you can see, we couldn't take it down, but the attack speed is slowed to 48. Means it's gonna deal a lot less damage. You can see Ripins is only at 106 energy resist yet, but if it's gonna tank more abilities, the Augment is gonna make it pretty much immortal to all that damage. Ripins going hyper, eventually dealing enough damage. Now, we can stay on the toxic bonding on the Ranger, or you can go for a different bonding this turn. You can sell the Kadulu and switch to bonding with the Ranger weapon to Aeon, and then you have just more Mystic, more shields, difficult for your opponent to take down your team. Or we can also just essentially put in Aeon or Darius this turn, or we can put in Augments that disrupt our opponent's team. Now, I think in this matchup, switching the bonding is very powerful. Mainly because we can go for double Techno Leecher on our monkey. Enemy team loses energy, enemy team loses energy, and we can put down one Nano Sequencer. Enemy team gains less energy. Our monkey is very protected behind Nala, Aelon and Kadulu. And it's just gonna be an incredibly debuff to our enemy's team. We could have moved the Gorilla to this side, but then it's just attacking Flood anyways. So Gorilla just jumping here is totally fine. You can see now. Saw this big jump on the energy on the Ranger. That's the Aeon casting. Also, my opponent swapping the Ranger over here means it's not attacking the Ripins, and it's casting again, minus big energy for the opponent. You see my opponent's team, it's just not working because we just drain them of the energy, and yeah, they can't really get going. They didn't really get a bunch of shields, they didn't really get anything. So very insane debuff combo here makes this matchup very good. So yeah, I think this was like a good showcase on how the matchup fundamentally goes. You can certainly change some sequencing of units that you play. You can prioritize getting in Berserkers earlier, for example. Like on turn 2, you can, instead of playing Null Kadulu, just play both Berserkers. And then you can position the Null accordingly on turn 3, so that it can just hit the enemy Ranger in the corner wherever your opponent is positioning them. You can just play around with essentially the sequence of you playing monkeys, playing berserkers, playing rogues. Even if you're playing with the same opponent multiple times, you can swap up when you're bringing in the rogues and you're bringing in the damage dealers, where you're positioning the tanks. But fundamentally speaking, by like turn 4 or 5, you just have your whole team assembled, and on turn 5 you start getting in those anti-energy augments versus those Enchanter, Psion, Tsunami, like super energy based teams, and you're gonna have a very, very easy time dealing with them. Hope you enjoyed watching the video, and see you guys in the next one.